everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of DEI After Five. I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking to you about what is happening around us right now. If you have been following me or if you know anything about me, you know that I have lived in the Washington, D.C. area for a little over 20 years at this point. And, yesterday I had to go into the city to do some work with a client, and we are in the midst of everything happening in the city where there has been a sense that there's an increase in violence and crime in the city. And so, to be very honest and frank with you, I was pretty nervous to go downtown. And the reason why, and it's interesting because I was going there to do a session on psychological safety in the workplace. And as I was driving in, I just realized my anxiety was very, very high. Part of that was because I know um, that I've been watched. There are folks that watch this show that don't necessarily have the best intentions. And so I'm not sure what's out there about me, what information has been shared, et cetera. And so I am very keenly aware of that. But at the same time, I am very proud that, of my Caribbean heritage. I have a Barbados, a sticker on my car. And so I was just extremely nervous that, ICE or some other agency may pull me over just because of that. Not because of, anything else. And so the stories that I've been hearing from some of my friends that do live in the city is they are, people are being pulled over for tail lights or being pulled over for just the most minuscule thing, in an effort to create chaos and fear. And so the irony of everything going on, and I'm, thinking I'm driving into this, city to have this conversation at a leadership institute about psychological safety. And as we're defining psychological safety and the ability to be able to speak up and share and challenge without fear of harm or retribution, realizing and understanding we are absolutely living in a time and a place and a space where people want to operate off of fear and harm, and they want to have retribution against those that do not have the same ideals or beliefs. And, it's been very, very challenging to just kind of focus this on the workplace. And because what I shared with the group yesterday is, as we're talking about psychological safety and what that means and what people experience every single day, it is not just what happens in the workplace. It is what happens within our homes, within our communities, within other organizations that we are a part of. And as we're thinking about, how do we create psychological safety for ourselves and for others and what we need, right? One of the things that I thought was very, very important is understanding that when the environment around us is not psychologically safe, what are the things that we're doing to take care of ourselves, right? What is it that we need? And so I shared with the group yesterday that, my anxiety, it was kind of very heightened. And me also thinking a lot about emotional intelligence, realize, okay, I need to be able to regulate my emotions as I am about to present, to this group. And so what I ended up doing was um, listening to music that kind of brought me joy as I was driving in, because driving into DC just on in itself is not always the best experience on a daily day basis. Listening to music. But then when I got to my location and they put me in a conference room to wait for my turn to present, um, I didn't turn the lights on, right? So I kept the lights pretty dim and just kind of zoned out. And it was one of those things that I realized, that some water, I just needed to calm my nerves and calm my system. And so I was thinking, how many of us are really tuned into what we need in order to create psychological safety, or at least to take care of ourselves, right? Some way of self-care. How are we filling our cups in those moments? But then how many of us are attuned in the when we think about emotional intelligence to what others may be thinking or experiencing? Um, And it was interesting because I had a conversation with the president of the organization who lives in DC and was saying, I don't see anything. I haven't seen any of the police presence or the military presence or the National Guard, in my neighborhood. And I was like, well, that's very interesting because I have a lot of friends who've said that they've seen that on a regular basis and started naming locations in the city where that presence is heightened. And so it caused us to really talk about, who is truly being impacted. And even if you're not specifically being impacted, does it impact those that you may know or work with? And really thinking about what community means, what community looks like, even if it is not right at our doors. And so I really wanted to just have this conversation today because I think it's so important that as I continue to talk about psychological safety, we look at it in the broader context of it goes far beyond the workplace. It goes into how are we creating spaces within our communities, within our neighborhoods that are psychologically safe. If someone needs help, if someone needs support, are we asking the right questions? Are we providing them with that help and support? Or are we ignoring them because we don't want to get involved, right? We all know about the bystander effect. And so I just really want people to think about, when you're listening to this show or you're listening to or going through some trainings, that we take those lessons beyond the workplace. We take them beyond the office. We take them to our homes. We take them to our communities. We are really tuning into how can I be a global citizen? How can I be more of a neighbor, of a community impactor as these things are going on? Who may be impacted that I don't even know? And how can I support them in ways that I may not see the initial support that they need, or I may not be able to give that initial support, but I am supporting in other ways. I tuned in last night to a webinar, and one of the young ladies who was a student at Howard University said, if you're not able to get out into the streets, you may be able to donate to a local food pantry, or you may be able to donate your time or volunteer at a local agency that's helping the unhoused, whatever it is. But there are ways that you can help and support and also help start to create a sense of psychological safety for others that may be struggling right now. And so I wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about that because it was on my heart, but it's also forced me to really think about how this work goes beyond the workplace, right? And I've had episodes talking about beyond the 9 to 5 and how this is in the community. And so I want to really reiterate that the work that we do here at the Equity Equation, the work that we do when we talk about psychological safety and support goes absolutely beyond the 9 to 5. It goes beyond what we do just at work. It is truly a part of our lives and should be a part of how we operate and think about ourselves as not just citizens of, the locations that we're a part of, but global citizens. And so wanted to leave that with you today. And until next time, I hope you have a good one. DEI After 5 is produced by the Leon Thomas Group. For more information, go to theleonthomasgroup.com.